Alright, so I was in the middle of recording this proof 3 of 5 and Mr. Cam came and bothered me, but it's okay. There's your givens. You guys should know how to do that by now, right? AB is congruent to BC, BD bisects angle ABC. Okay, so that means you have your two givens. Okay, so the next part here, what you want to do is if you're given AB is congruent to BC, you want to mark those sides that are congruent. So here, these are my sides that are congruent to each other. Okay? Alright, BD bisects angle ABC. Okay, so BD bisects angle ABC. So, this part here, what you want to do is if you're bisecting an angle, what this implies is that this angle ABC is going to be split into two congruent angles. So this angle is going to be congruent to this one. Okay? So angle ABD is congruent to angle CBD. Right? Okay, so this bisects this angle, and this is definition of bisector. Okay, so here we identified two angles that are congruent. Here is my pair of angles that are congruent to each other. Okay, yeah, just as a reminder, I don't see any perpendicular lines, anything about a midpoint. None of your reasons here should say something about a midpoint or perpendicular lines. Okay, next thing I see is that there's a side shared between both triangles. I believe it's this one here, this segment DB. So let's go write that down. DB is congruent to BD, and that will be by the reflexive property. Okay, so since they're congruent to each other, these are a pair of sides that are congruent to each other. Okay, the next step here, what I see is, let's draw these separately. I think some of you can't identify this yet because you guys have a hard time marking or just like identifying in general. Anyway, if I draw these triangles separately, what we have here now is we have an angle that is included between the two sides. So this is side, angle, side. So here, up here, we're proving that two segments are congruent to each other. So if we're proving that two segments are congruent to each other, that means we first have to prove that the triangles are congruent to each other first, and then we can say their corresponding parts are congruent to each other. So here we go. Triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. Okay? And this is going to be congruent by side, angle, side. And this last part here, since we're proving that a pair of sides are congruent, this is going to be segment AD is congruent to segment CD. And this, since the corresponding parts are congruent to each other, this is CPC TC. So try to not get this mixed up with this step over here. Okay? That's pretty much it for this. This is proof 3 of 5.